The galaxy stretched wide and endless, a dark ocean scattered with cold stars. The Vrix Dominion fleet floated in disciplined silence, their 37 warships standing in perfect formation like predators waiting for prey. Admiral Kor stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, the Dominion's Wrath, his 4 black eyes fixed on the void beyond the viewing screen. They had just crushed the last rebel stronghold in this sector, and the quiet that followed felt heavy. The battle was over, or so it seemed. Crew members moved with calm efficiency, their talent hands gliding over glowing control panels. The faint hum of the ship's reactors was the only sound besides the occasional soft report from officers. Kor's mind was already moving to the next mission, reclaiming more territory in the name of the Dominion. The rebels were nothing but scattered dust now. Then the calm was broken. The sensor officer's voice trembled slightly as he spoke. "Admiral, detecting something." Kor turned his gaze toward him. "Something," he repeated. The officer nodded. "A ship, sir. Coming in fast from the outer perimeter." The words made the bridge go still. At first, the reading was faint, almost ghost-like, just a blip in the endless black. It could have been space debris, a drifting escape pod, or even a sensor glitch. But as moments passed, the signal grew stronger, sharper. The computer confirmed it was no phantom. It was a vessel approaching with incredible speed. Kor's second-game man leaned forward, studying the tactical display. Size, small. "Maybe 2/3 the length of our cruisers," he said slowly. No escorts. No identification code broadcast. The room filled with a low murmur of disbelief. No one traveled this deep into Dominion space alone, not unless they were desperate or insane. Then the identification flashed across the display. The bridge fell silent. "It's human," the sensor officer whispered. The word hung in the air like a shadow. Humans were considered primitive outsiders. They stayed in their own corner of the galaxy, barely involved in wider affairs. For one of their ships to appear here, deep inside hostile territory, was unthinkable. Kor's voice was calm, but edged with steel. "Open a channel." The communications officer tapped in the command, sending out a standard hail. They waited. The human vessel didn't respond. Instead, its speed increased, closing the distance. In seconds, the image on the display sharpened, showing the intruder. It was sleek and black, its hull absorbing the faint light of the nearby star. The design was strange, unfamiliar, and most unsettling of all, no visible weapons were mounted on its surface. It looked almost harmless, like an unarmed scout ship. But its speed told a different story. "This is Admiral Kor of the Vrix Dominion," the COM officer said into the open channel. "You are trespassing in restricted space. Identify yourself or be destroyed." No answer came. The human vessel just kept coming. Kor narrowed his eyes, targeted, prepared to fire warning shots. The gunnery crew locked the forward batteries onto the ship, but before the order to fire could be given, the human warship vanished from their sensors. It was there one moment, gone the next. A ripple of shock passed through the crew. "Where did it go?" shouted one officer. The sensor operator's hands flew over the controls. It's gone, sir. Completely gone." Kor's expression hardened. "Cloaking," he said. The word made several officers exchange uneasy looks. True cloaking. Technology was beyond the Dominion's reach. The idea that humans had it was impossible, yet the evidence was before them. Alarms wailed suddenly. A flash of light erupted in the darkness. One of the destroyers in the outer ring exploded, fire and debris scattering into the void. The shockwave rippled through the formation. The human ship reappeared for a heartbeat, just long enough to fire, then vanished again, shields up. "All ships, tighten formation." Kor barked. His orders rang through the fleet's comms. The warships began to shift, closing ranks to protect the more vulnerable vessels. but the human warship was already moving. Another explosion ripped through a cruiser, splitting it in two before its crew could even react. The bridge crew stared in disbelief. Their sensors could only catch glimpses of the enemy between attacks. It moved like a ghost, striking with perfect accuracy, always disappearing before they could return fire. Kor's hands gripped the railing in front of him. His mind raced. This was no desperate human pilot on a suicide run. This was precision warfare. The intruder was dissecting his fleet, cutting away ships one by one. The tactical display was a mess now, flashing red warnings as ships were lost. The comms were a storm of panicked voices, captains shouting that they couldn't track the target, that their shots were hitting empty space. In less than 2 minutes, 5 Dominion ships were gone. On the bridge of the Dominion's wrath, the tension was a living thing. Kor's second gunman finally spoke. His voice, low, "Admiral, if this continues, they could destroy us all." Kor didn't answer immediately. He was watching the pattern of attacks. Each strike came from a different vector, always the weakest point in their formation. It was as if the human captain could read their moves before they made them. Another blast lit the darkness. The crew flinched. More debris scattered across the stars. The human ship flickered into sight again, and for a moment, Kor's eyes locked on it. Sleek, black, deadly, and silent. There was no taunt, no broadcast, just pure, surgical destruction. This is a message, Kor thought, not daring to say it aloud. The Dominion prided itself on being the most feared force in the galaxy, but tonight, one human warship was tearing that pride apart. As the enemy vanished once more, the Admiral made a decision. "All ships converge on my position," he ordered. "We will force it into the open." But even as he spoke, he knew it would not be that simple. The next move belonged to the human, and in that silent, star-filled void, Kor realized something that chilled him more than the cold of space. This battle wasn't just about survival. This was history in the making. The galaxy would remember the night one human warship faced an entire fleet and won. The wreckage of 5 destroyed warships still drifted among the stars, glowing faintly in the dark. Each fragment told a story of a sudden death, entire crews wiped out in seconds. Admiral Kor stood rigid on the bridge of the Dominion's wrath, his 4 eyes scanning the tactical display that now looked like a blood-red wound in space. 37 ships had begun this encounter. Now, only 32 remained. And the predator circling them was just one human vessel. The fleet had tightened its formation as ordered, massive ships now looming close to one another like a wall of steel. The crew believed this would give them safety. Kor knew it was only a thin hope. The human ship had already proven it could vanish and reappear anywhere it wished, still no visual. Kor demanded. His sensor officer shook his head. "Nothing, sir. It's completely off our scopes." That was the worst part. It was as though the enemy had melted into the void itself. Then, without warning, the Dominion's wrath shook. Violently, alarms screamed as the lights flickered. "Hull breach in Section 4. A voice cried out. The ship's shields had been pierced in a single surgical strike. They hadn't even seen it coming. Kor slammed a clawed hand against the console. "Fire in all directions. Use pulse cannons. Sweep the area." The space around them lit up in a brilliant storm of energy bolts streaking through the black. But they hit nothing. The human ship was gone again, in the chaos. One of the smaller escorts, the Vrix Talon, broke formation. Trying to flank the invisible intruder, Kor saw the move on the display and tried to order them back, but it was too late. A flash of light bloomed where the Vrix Talon had been, then nothing but dust. The human ship reappeared for less than a second, close enough for the bridge crew to see its strange hull markings, white symbols painted over black armor, before it vanished again. Kor stared at that brief image. It didn't look like anything from Dominion intelligence files. It was as if the humans had been building warships in complete secrecy. Far beyond known technology, Admiral, his second-in-command, said quietly, "It's toying with us." Kor knew it was true. This wasn't a wild attack. It was a hunt, deliberate and patient. He opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, listen to me. This is no ordinary opponent. Do not break formation again. We will trap it by forcing a closure of our defensive ring." His voice was steady, but his mind was already racing. The human captain was unpredictable, but not random. Every strike had hit the weakest point of their formation. The ship was fast, yes, but it was also intelligent, whoever commanded it. Understood warfare on a level Kor had rarely seen. Suddenly, 3 ships at the far edge of the formation were hit at once. Multiple explosions lit up the stars. Gasps filled the bridge as the tactical display flickered with warning symbols. "It's splitting its fire." The gunnery chief shouted, "How can one ship hit 3 targets in the same instant?" Kor's mind locked onto the answer. "It's not speed," he murmured. "It's positioning." The human warship wasn't attacking and then fleeing. It was weaving through their fleet like a phantom, placing itself where it could strike from multiple angles before disappearing. As the Dominion scrambled to adjust, a sudden transmission cut through the static. It was an audio feed, crisp and clear, a human voice, deep and calm, Admiral Kor. It said, "Stand down, this is over." The bridge went utterly silent. The Admiral stepped closer to the station. "Identify yourself," he demanded. The voice replied, "Captain Elias Vance, United Terran Navy. Dreadnought Valkyrie." The name was unknown to Dominion records. But the tone, the certainty, was chilling. "You dare enter Dominion space alone?" Kor growled. The human's voice carried no fear, only quiet authority. "I came to deliver a message," he said. "Your empire is not untouchable. You have crossed into territories where you don't belong. Leave and take your fleet with. You or I will send you all to whatever gods you believe in." The transmission cut out before Kor could reply. The silence that followed felt heavier than the void outside. Several bridge officers exchanged uneasy glances. No one had ever spoken. To the Admiral like that and lived, Kor's rage flared. "All ships target the coordinates of that signal." He roared. The fleet fired in unison, brilliant streams of energy crisscrossing the void. But when the light faded, there was nothing there. Moments later, the Valkyrie struck again. This time it appeared above one of the Dominion's heavy battleships, unleashing a beam so concentrated that the battleship split apart in 2 clean halves. The human ship then rolled gracefully and vanished once more. It was becoming clear to everyone on the bridge, this was no losing fight for the human. This was a demonstration, a performance of power, and it was working. The fear in the air was almost visible now. Some officers were whispering that they should retreat. Others clenched their jaws, refusing to speak such words. Kor knew that if he gave the order to run, his reputation would be destroyed. But if they stayed, the fleet might not survive. He turned to his second-in-command. "Ready the Wrath's forward ramming prow," he said. "If we cannot outgun it, we will crush it." The officer looked shocked. "Admiral, with respect, no one has rammed a ship in centuries." Kor's eyes narrowed. "Then let history remember that we were the first in centuries to do it." The trap was set. The Dominion's Wrath powered forward, its massive armored prow designed to tear through the strongest enemy hulls. The rest of the fleet shifted subtly, herding the invisible predator toward the flagship's path. For a moment, it seemed to work. The Valkyrie appeared dead ahead, closing fast. The bridge crew braced. The prow surged forward like a blade through the stars. But then, impossibly, the human ship rolled aside at the last instant. Slipping past with a flicker of light, A shockwave slammed through the Wrath as the Valkyrie unleashed a point-blank barrage into their engines. Warning sirens blared. The ship's power flickered. Kor gritted his teeth as smoke filled the bridge, and in that moment of chaos, he realized the truth. The human captain hadn't just come to fight. He had come to show the Dominion that even their mightiest fleet could be broken. The hunt was far from over. But for the first time in his career, Admiral Kor felt something unfamiliar in his chest. Not anger, not pride, but a cold, sharp edge of fear. Debris floated like silent ghosts in the darkness, each fragment glowing faintly from the fires that had not yet died. The Dominion's Wrath limped forward, its main engines damaged. A faint trail of vented gas marking its path through the void. Admiral Kor stood unflinching at the bridge's forward viewport, staring into the emptiness where the human warship had vanished once again. His fleet, the pride of the Vrix Dominion, was bleeding ships at a pace he could hardly believe. What unsettled him more than the losses was the silence. The human ship did not gloat, did not send demands. It simply struck, vanished, and struck again. It was as though the captain aboard the Valkyrie was more interested in proving a point than in securing a quick kill. The surviving fleet had pulled in tighter now, forming a dense sphere of overlapping firing arcs. No vessel drifted beyond the others. The space between them was filled with constant scanning beams, pulses of energy designed to break through any cloaking field, but so far, nothing had worked. Admiral, damage control reports we can restore main power in 20 minutes. His second-in-command said. Kor gave a short nod. We don't have 20 minutes, he replied coldly. Sensors chirped suddenly. The room tensed. Contact. Kor asked sharply. The sensor officer hesitated. A distortion. Not quite a solid lock. Kor's claws gripped the rail in front of him. Fire on it anyway. The Wrath's heavy cannons roared, bolts of energy slamming into empty space. But just before the last shot faded, a black shape flickered briefly into existence far off their starboard flank. All ships, rotate and fire. Kor barked. The fleet responded instantly, weapons blazing. But the Valkyrie danced between the streams of deadly fire, vanishing once more a heartbeat later. One of the Dominion's assault carriers erupted into flame. Kor's second-in-command turned toward him, voice low but urgent. Sir, we can't beat it like this. Kor didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the tactical readouts. The human captain wasn't just winning through stealth, he was dismantling their morale. The Dominion had fought against hundreds of species, and always overwhelmed them with sheer numbers. Yet here they were, outnumbering their opponent 30-1. And losing. A sudden thought came to him. Initiate Operation Swarm, he ordered. Every officer on the bridge froze. Operation Swarm was a tactic rarely used. It meant dispersing the fleet into dozens of small attack wings, sacrificing mutual defense to saturate an area with overlapping fields of fire. It was dangerous, but it might force the Valkyrie into the open. The orders went out. The massive Dominion fleet broke apart, smaller wings of 3 or 4 ships darting into different positions. Their combined weapons created a deadly web across the stars. For several long minutes, nothing happened. The Valkyrie was nowhere to be seen. Then the human ship appeared dead center in one of the webs. Kor's breath caught. Every ship in that wing opened fire. The void lit up with blinding explosions. The human vessel's shields flared under the impact. The bridge crew of the Wrath let out cheers until they saw the Valkyrie accelerate instead of retreat. The human ship dove straight through the withering fire, its hull shimmering with some kind of adaptive plating at point-blank range. It fired a single shot that tore a destroyer apart, then banked sharply, destroying a second ship before disappearing. Into nothingness again, the cheers died instantly, replaced by grim silence. Kor knew this tactic wasn't enough. The human was too fast, too precise. Every time they thought they had it cornered, it slipped through with surgical strikes. A faint signal crackled in the comms. Admiral Kor. The human voice came. Again, calm and deep. You are beginning to understand. Kor stepped toward the comm station. Understand what? He growled. The voice replied, that your size, your numbers, your pride mean nothing here. Kor felt his claws bite into the railing. Why are you doing this? Why not finish it? The human's answer was simple, because fear lasts longer than death, and then the line went dead. Every officer in the room shifted uncomfortably. That statement was more terrifying than the attacks. It meant this wasn't just a battle, it was a lesson. Moments later, another alarm blared. The Valkyrie had reappeared, but this time, not to attack. It was positioned directly between two wings of Dominion ships. Both groups fired at once, and the human ship rolled and dipped so precisely that their shots crossed paths. Dominion weapons slammed into Dominion hulls. Two more ships were gone in seconds. Kor realized the human captain was now using their own aggression against them. He was turning their every move into a mistake. Admiral long-range sensors are detecting movement. The sensor officer said suddenly, "It's more ships, but they're not Dominion." Kor's gaze snapped toward him. Human reinforcements. The officer hesitated. "No, sir, not exactly. Their designs are mixed. Multiple species." It hit Kor like a strike to the chest. This wasn't just one human ship. This was part of something bigger. The Valkyrie was the spearhead, and whatever was coming next would be the hammer. A chill settled over the bridge. The Dominion had always believed humans were isolated, but if they had allies, the balance of power in the galaxy might already be shifting. Kor straightened. Forcing his voice to remain steady, prepare for full retreat. His second-gamed eyes widened. "Sir, that will do it." Kor cut him off. He would not sacrifice the rest of his fleet in a battle they could not win. But as the fleet began to turn away, the Valkyrie appeared once more. Directly ahead of the Wrath, its dark hull seemed almost to glow against the starlight. The two ships faced each other in the silent void. For a moment, neither moved. Then the human voice came over the comm again. "Run, Admiral. Tell your people what you saw tonight. And remember, this was only one ship." The Valkyrie rolled away and vanished into the black, leaving the battered Dominion fleet to limp back into friendly space. Behind them, the stars burned cold, and the message hung heavy in every mind. One human warship had faced an entire fleet, and it was winning. The Dominion fleet limped through the cold void, their engines burning low to conserve what little power remained. Every ship carried scars, scorched hulls, shattered plating, flickering lights from damaged systems. Admiral Kor stood on the bridge of the Dominion's Wrath, staring at the tactical display that showed 32 red markers. Each one represented a surviving ship. But together, they no longer felt like a fleet. They felt like prey. For hours, they moved without incident, scanning the black for any sign of the human dreadnought. The crew was tense, shoulders stiff, eyes darting to every flicker on the sensors. They spoke little, afraid even their voices might draw the Predator's attention. Then the sensor officer stiffened. "Admiral." Have movement." Kor's claws gripped the railing. "The Valkyrie?" he asked. The officer hesitated. "No, sir. This is." Larger, the display shifted, revealing dozens of contacts emerging from hyperspace. Their configurations were varied. Sleek frigates with needle-like hulls, broad carriers with massive hangar bays, angular destroyers bristling with turrets, cores. Second-in-command leaned closer, his voice tight. "Those designs. They're from different civilizations." The truth sank in fast. The ships were not a single fleet. They were an alliance. The comm officer looked up, eyes wide. "Admiral, Multiple languages are broadcasting. They're all saying the same thing: stand down or be destroyed. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Kor's mind raced. The Dominion had enemies. But no coalition like this had ever stood together before. He thought back to the human captain's words, "Fear lasts longer than death." It hit him now that the Valkyrie had not been fighting for itself alone. It had been holding the Dominion in place, giving these allied ships time to arrive. One by one, the new arrivals took up positions. Surrounding the Dominion fleet, the tactical display now looked like a tightening noose. The Dominion sphere of battered warships was caught. In the center, and then, almost mockingly, the Valkyrie appeared. Emerging from the void directly in front of Kor's flagship, its black hull bore not a single scorch mark, as if the battle had been effortless. The human voice came again over the comm, deep and calm. "Admiral Kor," he said, "the galaxy has been patient with your empire's expansion. That patience ends today." Kor's jaw tightened. "You think this alliance will last? The moment you've served your purpose, they'll turn on you. That is the way of the galaxy." Captain Vance's reply carried a quiet conviction that unsettled even the most battle-hardened officers. Perhaps, but for now, they stand together. And that is enough. The Allied fleet began moving, shifting into attack formations. Kor's instincts screamed to give the order to fire. But logic kept him frozen. They were outnumbered now in a way that no Dominion commander could ignore. Even if they somehow destroyed the Valkyrie, the rest would tear them apart. But retreat meant humiliation. Retreat meant the Dominion's enemies would smell blood. The Empire's aura of invincibility would be shattered. Kor's mind was torn. Between pride and survival, before he could decide, the Valkyrie moved. It cut across the front of the Allied fleet with a slow, deliberate pass. Its massive railguns rotating to point directly at the Wrath. The message was clear. The human ship could kill him at any moment. Then, without warning, the Allied fleet opened fire, but not on the Dominion. Instead, streams of bright energy streaked past them, striking precise points in the void. The stars shimmered, and dozens of cloaked Dominion stealth corvettes flickered into view, exploding under the barrage. Gasps filled the Wrath's bridge. Those corvettes had been their hidden ace, lying in wait to ambush the humans. Somehow, the Allies had known exactly where they were. The Valkyrie's voice came again. "We see all your moves, Admiral. Every trap you set, we will dismantle. There will be no hidden blade, no sudden strike. You will leave this sector and never return." Kor's claws tapped against the railing. A slow, deliberate rhythm. He understood now that the human captain was dismantling not just his fleet, but the very idea that the Dominion could dominate this region. It was psychological warfare on a galactic scale. Still, part of him refused to yield without testing this enemy one more time. "Signal all ships," he said. "Prepare concentrated fire on the Valkyrie. We will take it down or die trying." His second-in-command hesitated. "Sir, the Allies." "Ignore them," Kor snapped. "This is between us and the human at his command." The battered Dominion fleet turned as one, their remaining weapons locking onto the black dreadnought. For a heartbeat, the void was silent. Then the sky lit up with streams of energy. Missiles and plasma fire. Every surviving gun in the Dominion fleet was aimed at the Valkyrie, but the human warship moved like nothing Kor had ever seen. It darted forward, cutting between the arcs of fire, its shields glowing and shifting as they absorbed impact after impact. Every shot that should have struck was intercepted, deflected, or dodged entirely. Then the Valkyrie answered. Its forward cannons unleashed a storm of kinetic slugs, each one tearing through Dominion armor like paper. Entire ships erupted in bursts of flame and debris, and still the black warship kept coming. By the time it closed to point-blank range with the Wrath, Half the Dominion's remaining ships were gone. The Allies had not even joined the attack. They simply held their positions, letting the human warship do the work. On the Wrath's bridge, smoke curled from damaged consoles. Officers shouted damage reports over the roar of alarms. Kor's claws dug into the railing as he stared at the approaching shape of the Valkyrie. Its weapons were dark now, its intent unreadable. Then Captain Vance's voice came one last time, low and steady. "Admiral, go home." And with that, the Valkyrie pulled away, drifting back into the Allied lines like a shadow melting into darkness. Kor stood there, chest heaving, the truth heavy in his mind. He had survived, but his victory was gone. The Dominion's aura of supremacy had been shattered in front of a dozen civilizations, and all it had taken was one human warship. The journey back to Dominion space felt longer than any campaign Admiral Kor had ever led. His fleet, or what was left of it, crawled through hyperspace like a wounded beast dragging itself to its den. Every jump seemed slower, every vibration. Through the hull, a reminder of what had happened inside the Dominion's wrath. The air was heavy with a silence that no officer dared break. The crew moved like shadows, speaking only when absolutely necessary. None of them would meet Kor's gaze. Some were too afraid, others too ashamed. When the fleet finally emerged over the Dominion capital world of Zareth, the sight that awaited them was not the welcome of returning victors. The orbital traffic control channels were clogged with orders, docking assignments, and most unusual of all, security instructions for incoming military vessels. Kor knew then that word of the defeat had arrived before he had. The Wrath docked under escort, black armored guards waiting at the bay. They didn't salute, didn't bow, simply formed a line and waited for him to disembark. Kor strode past them without a word, his steps heavy but unbroken. The High Council chamber was a vast, cold hall of black stone and silver light. 12 counselors sat in their elevated seats, their faces expressionless. The Supreme Counselor, Threx, regarded him with unblinking eyes. Admiral Kor Threx began, his voice carrying through the chamber like a blade sliding from its sheath. "You return with less than half the fleet entrusted to you." "Explain." Kor stood tall, forcing his voice to remain steady. "We were intercepted by a human dreadnought in Sector K-19. It employed technology beyond anything in our records. True cloaking, adaptive shielding, precision weaponry. It engaged us for hours, systematically destroying our ships and—" he hesitated. "It was supported by an allied fleet of multiple species." A ripple of murmurs moved through the chamber. The counselors exchanged sharp glances. "You expect us to believe," one hissed, "that the primitive humans not only possess superior warships, but command the loyalty of other civilizations." "They were not loyal," Kor replied, "but they fought together, under human coordination. The human captain, Vance, said they were united against our expansion." The Supreme Counselor leaned forward. "And you, with 37 ships, could not destroy one." Kor's jaw tightened. "I could not catch it. It struck from the shadows, dismantled our traps, and used our own fire against us. Every move we made, it was already 2 steps ahead." Silence fell again, cold and sharp. One of the elder counselors spoke at last. "Do you understand what this means, Admiral? If this account is true, the Dominion's aura of invincibility is broken. Our enemies will rise. Our subjects will whisper of rebellion." Kor's claws scraped lightly against the railing before him. "Then we must adapt. We must learn what they know, build what they build. This captain, this Valkyrie, must be found and destroyed before their legend grows." But the counselors were not convinced. Some saw him as a failure who had brought shame to the Dominion. Others, more quietly, saw the danger in dismissing his warning. The Supreme Counselor finally said, "You will remain under review, Admiral. Your command is suspended until further notice." Guards stepped forward, ready to escort him away. As Kor left the chamber, he caught fragments of the council's debate. Words like propaganda, containment, and public secrecy. They would try to bury this defeat, to erase the Valkyrie from official records, but Kor knew that such a legend could not be erased. The galaxy would speak of it whether the Dominion allowed it or not. Later, in the quiet of his private quarters, Kor replayed the battle over and over in his mind. He studied every move, every strike. The human's voice echoed in his memory. Fear lasts longer than death. The words were not just a threat, they were a doctrine. He pulled up the Dominion's restricted intelligence archives, searching for any mention of humans beyond border skirmishes. There was little scraps of outdated reports and minor encounters. It was clear now the Dominion had underestimated them, dismissed them, and now they were paying the price as he studied. A secure message appeared on his console. No sender. ID just a single line of text. You're not the only one who wants to know more about the Valkyrie. Before he could respond, the message vanished, leaving no trace. Kor stared at the dark screen, his mind turning. Someone else within the Dominion. Wanted answers, perhaps even allies in the shadows. Far from Zareth, in the deep void, Captain Elias Vance stood on the bridge of the Valkyrie. The Allied fleet had dispersed, their mission complete, around him. His crew moved with quiet efficiency, none celebrating. Vance knew the battle was only the beginning. He turned to his first officer, a tall Andari female with deep silver eyes. "The Dominion won't take this lying down," he said. She nodded. "No, they'll send more ships. More fleets. They'll study us. Try to match us." Vance's gaze drifted to the endless stars. "Let them try," he murmured. "The moment. They think they understand us. We'll change the game again, and somewhere, on worlds far apart." Both men, the predator and the prey, began preparing for the next time their paths would cross. In the cold silence between stars, the Dominion's war machine stirred. Again, word of the defeat in Sector K-19 had spread despite the High Council's efforts to contain it. Rumors whispered through military halls and shadowed marketplaces alike that a single human warship had humiliated the Dominion's mightiest fleet. Admirals scoffed in public, but in private, they tightened their defenses and studied every fragment of data on Zareth. Admiral Kor stood inside a sealed hangar deep within the capital's military complex. Before him, under harsh white lights, floated the Dominion's newest weapon, the Vraction-class battlecruiser. Sleeker than the old warships, its hull layered with adaptive armor plates. Its engines redesigned for sudden bursts of acceleration. Most importantly, it carried the Dominion's first attempt at a true cloaking device. The engineers called it Ghost Phase. A commander beside Kor spoke with quiet pride. "She can vanish from sensors in under a heartbeat, Admiral, and her fire control systems can lock and fire while cloaked." Kor's eyes lingered on the ship's blackened prow. "Then she's exactly what we need." The High Council had reinstated him. But with a condition: he was to take command of a special task force designed for one mission only: hunt the Valkyrie and destroy it. They had given him 20 ships, all refitted with new stealth counters, enhanced tracking systems, and the latest kinetic weaponry. Weeks later, the task force left Dominion space, slipping through the edges of neutral zones where the human alliance was rumored to operate. Every crew member knew the stakes. This was not a patrol or a show of force. This was a hunt for a ghost. 3 jumps into enemy borderlands. The trap was set. Kor ordered his fleet into a scattered net formation, each ship's sensors tuned to pick up even the faintest energy fluctuation. The Valkyrie had eluded them before, but now, he believed, they had the tools to track it. For days, the void was empty. Then, without warning, a faint ripple touched the edge of the Vraction sensors. It was so small that a less vigilant crew might have dismissed it as background noise. But Kor had been waiting for this. signal. All ships, he ordered. Collapse the net, target the anomaly. The fleet moved with precision. Engines burning bright as they closed in, weapons armed, shields raised. Then the black shape emerged from the void. The Valkyrie, untouched and as silent as ever. Kor felt his claws tighten on the arm of his command chair. "Lock all weapons," he said. His gunnery chief hesitated. "Sir, it's not moving." The human dreadnought simply floated there. A challenge, Kor thought, or a lure. He didn't care. Fire? 20 Dominion warships unleashed a storm of energy, missiles, and kinetic slugs. The void lit up like a supernova. The Valkyrie's shields flared. But then something unexpected happened. The ship didn't vanish. Instead, it moved forward. "Slow and deliberate, sir." The sensor officer's voice was sharp. "It's broadcasting." The comms lit up with Captain Vance's voice, calm as ever. "I wondered when you'd come back." "Admiral," Kor's teeth bared. "This time, you won't escape." Vance chuckled, not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. "That's what you said before." The Dominion's new tech seemed to give them the upper hand at first. They were tracking the Valkyries' every movement, their cloaked ships. Flanking from multiple angles, a destroyer scored a direct hit on its starboard flank. Shaking the dreadnought's shields, cheers erupted across Kor's bridge. But then, the Valkyrie's retaliation began. It moved faster than before, weaving. Between Dominion ships, its weapons now struck in combinations, a railgun slug to crack armor, followed instantly by a beam lance to pierce through the breach. Ships died in pairs, vanishing into fireballs before their crews even registered the hits. Kor tried to keep the pressure on, ordering his cloaked ships to encircle and close in. But as they moved, the Valkyrie's sensors found them. Its guns tracked and fired into empty space, and each shot struck dead center. The Dominion's own ghost phase technology had been compromised. "Help!" the science officer began, but Kor already knew. "They've adapted," he said coldly. "They know exactly how to counter our new systems." It was a nightmare repeating itself. Only now, the human dreadnought wasn't just evading them. It was dismantling them faster than before. Within minutes, 7 ships were gone. 3 more crippled. The fleet's formation was shattered, and then the real blow came. The Valkyrie transmitted again. "Nice upgrade, Admiral, but you're still thinking like the Dominion, brute force, numbers, intimidation that doesn't work on me." Kor's eyes burned. "You think you've won. We'll keep coming until you're nothing but wreckage." Vance's reply was like ice. "Then I'll keep teaching your people the same lesson until they finally learn it." The Valkyrie vanished once more, but not into the void. This time it slipped directly into the chaos of the Dominion formation, appearing and disappearing between ships like a shadow that tore metal apart with every pass. By the time Kor ordered retreat, only 9 ships remained capable of jumping to safety. The rest were either destroyed or adrift as the surviving vessels limped away. Kor knew the truth. The Dominion could keep throwing fleets at the Valkyrie. They could keep building new weapons, but each time, the human would be ready. And each time, the fear would grow far behind them. The Valkyrie floated silently among the wreckage, its crew moving without celebration. Vance stood at the forward viewport, watching the last red blips fade from his sensors. "They'll come." Again, his first officer said. Vance nodded. "Good. Every time they do, the legend grows, and somewhere deep inside Dominion space, whispers began again. Whispers that no matter how much they built, no matter how many ships they sent, one human warship could still defeat them all. The Dominion had been humiliated twice, and the shame had festered into fury. On every military world, shipyards burned day and night. Factories poured out weapons, armor, and engines. And from the capital itself came the order that had not been spoken for centuries: total mobilization. This would not be a fleet. not a task force. This would be everything the Dominion could throw into a single battle. One armada to crush the human dreadnought and erase its name from the galaxy. Admiral Kor stood on the command deck of the Dominion's Wrath, now fully repaired and upgraded. But he no longer commanded a mere 30 or even 20 ships before. Him in the void stretched a formation so vast it took minutes for the tactical display to render it all 300 Dominion warships. Battleships bristling with cannons, carriers packed with fighter wings, cruisers armed to the teeth with missile racks, even experimental warships. The kind never meant to leave testing docks had been brought here. The message was clear. This was the Dominion's final word on the matter. The plan was simple in design but brutal in execution. They would seal an entire sector of space with ships and minefields, cutting off every hyperspace route. The Valkyrie would have nowhere to run. Once trapped, they would close in from every side and destroy it. With overwhelming firepower in the shadow of a dead star, the trap was set. For days, they waited. Fighter wings patrolled tirelessly. Stealth corvettes drifted in the darkness, ready to spring. Then, on the third cycle, the signal came. A faint ripple on the sensors the kind Kor had learned to fear. There it was, sliding into the sector. As if drawn by some unseen thread, the Valkyrie Kor's voice was ice. All wings converge. Do not let it reach the outer perimeter. The armada moved as one, an unstoppable wall of steel and fire. The human ship did not flee. It moved deeper into the trap. The bridge of the Wrath was silent, except for the hum of weapons charging. When the first volley came, it was a sight. To shake the stars, 300 warships opened fire together. The void became a furnace, beams and slugs and missiles filling every corner of space. The Valkyrie's shields flared like a sun, but the firepower was too much for the first time. Its hull glowed red with heat. For the first time, Kor felt victory was close. But then, the human dreadnought moved, not to flee, but to dive. It plunged straight into the thickest cluster of Dominion ships. A place no sane captain would dare enter. Dominion gunners hesitated, afraid of hitting their own. And in that hesitation, the Valkyrie tore through them. Its weapons spat destruction in every direction. Shields flickered, hulls split, reactors went critical. The armada's own size had become its weakness. Still, the Dominion pressed. Waves of fighters swarmed the human ship. Missiles detonated around it in blinding bursts. The Valkyrie staggered under the onslaught. Even its legendary shields were beginning to falter. Kor seized the moment. Bring the Wrath in close. I want all forward batteries locked on its engines. The flagship surged forward, cutting through debris and fire. The Valkyrie twisted, trying to break away. But the net was tightening. For the first time, it seemed trapped. Then the human voice came over the calm even now. Admiral, you brought everyone, didn't you? Kor snarled. This ends now, Vance. The reply was almost amused. Yes, it does. Without warning, the stars themselves seemed to shift. Dozens of hyperspace rifts tore open around the battlefield, and out of them poured ships, human ships, alien ships, vessels of every shape and size. The Alliance had come, not a small strike force, but a fleet to match the Dominion's own. Panic rippled through Dominion comms. Kor's mind spun. This had never been about catching the Valkyrie. It had been about holding the Dominion's greatest force in one place long enough for the Allies to arrive. The battle that followed was chaos given form. Allied ships slammed into Dominion lines from every direction. Cruisers dueled in blinding close-range exchanges. Fighters wove in deadly dances among the capital ships. The Valkyrie, now no longer the hunted, moved with its allies, cutting down the largest Dominion warships one after another. Kor fought with everything he had. The Wrath traded blows with 3 Allied battleships at once. He gave orders faster. Then his crew could relay them, but for every Dominion ship that scored a kill, 2 more were lost. Hours later, the dead star was ringed with wreckage. The Dominion's great armada was in ruins. Korra's flagship was burning, its shields gone, its engines crippled, and there, amid the drifting debris, the Valkyrie hovered. Untouched, save for scorch marks, the Cums crackled one last time. Admiral Vance's voice said, "This is the 3rd time we've done this. Tell your council." "There won't be a 4th. Korra stared at the screen. His fleet was gone. The Dominion's pride shattered, and for the first time he understood that this was not just the loss of a battle. This was the beginning of the end. The Valkyrie turned and slipped into hyperspace. The Allied fleet followed, and the broken remnants of the Dominion armada were left to drift in the silent dark. Defeated not just by weapons, but by the unity of enemies they had long thought beneath them. The wreckage of the Dominion's greatest fleet drifted in the silent dark. Fires burned low in the twisted husks of shattered warships, the occasional explosion flaring like a dying heartbeat. Rescue craft moved among the debris, picking up survivors, though many ships were too damaged to even signal for help. The battle around the dead star had ended, but its echoes would ripple across the galaxy for generations. From the battered bridge of the Dominion's wrath, Admiral Korra stared at what was left of his armada. The once proud flagship now floated on emergency power. Its hull split in several places. The bridge smelled of burnt circuitry and scorched metal. Every system groaned under strain. Reports came in casualty counts that climbed too fast. Repair estimates that stretched into months. It was no longer a question of victory or defeat. The Dominion had been broken. The Cums were still open to surviving ships, but no one spoke. The silence was worse than shouting, worse than fear. It was the silence of realization they had faced the Valkyrie and the alliance it commanded, and they had lost everything. When Korra finally spoke, his voice was low. "Signal the High Council. Tell them I will return to Zareth to give my report personally." The Cum officer hesitated. "Admiral, there are already transmissions from the Council. They are demanding an explanation." Korra's jaw tightened. "They will have it. But they will not like what they hear." As the Wrath limped toward the nearest jump point, news of the battle spread faster than hyperspace travel. Independent traders carried the story from system to system on neutral worlds. Hollis played shaky recordings of the human dreadnought tearing through Dominion warships. On oppressed worlds, whispered conversations turned into open defiance in the hidden channels of rebel networks. The name Valkyrie became a rallying cry. Meanwhile, far from the ruins, the Alliance fleet gathered in the orbit of a quiet, bride-green world. Ships of every shape and size hung in formation, exchanging supply, crews, and repairs at the center. The Valkyrie floated like a silent sentinel on its bridge. Captain Elias Vance stood before the viewport. Watching the stars, his first officer, Commander Alira, approached, her silver eyes calm but watchful. "It's over," she said. "The Dominion won't recover from this for years." Vance shook his head. "It's never over. They'll rebuild, they'll adapt, and they'll want revenge." Alira tilted her head. "And us?" "We'll be ready," Vance said simply. The Alliance Council convened in the Great Hall of the orbital station above the Green World. Representatives from a dozen species spoke in turn, some with voices full of pride, others with quiet worry. For all their celebration, they knew the truth. They had united because of the threat. But unity was fragile if they didn't maintain it. The Dominion could exploit divisions. When Vance entered the chamber, the conversation stopped. Every eye turned to him. A Kelron ambassador spoke first. "Captain Vance, you've done what none of us believed possible. You have humbled the Dominion." Another, a grizzled warrior from the Zith clans, added, "You've given the galaxy proof they can bleed." Vance nodded. We've shown them they're not untouchable. But that's only the first step. The Alliance must stand beyond one battle, or all of this will mean nothing. Some agreed. Others exchanged uneasy looks. Already old rivalries were stirring beneath the surface, but for now, his words carried. Wait, back in Dominion space, the High Council chamber was a furnace of accusation and fury. Kor stood before the 12 counselors, the echoes of their demands crashing over him. 3 times you have faced this human ship, and 3 times you have failed. One shouted, "You have shamed the Dominion before the galaxy." Cried another. Kor let their words wash over him. When they paused, he spoke. The Valkyrie is not a single ship. It is the symbol of something greater, an alliance, a unity of purpose. Until we understand and counter that, it does not matter how many fleets we send. The Supreme Counselor's eyes narrowed. You speak as though you admire them. I respect what they've built, Kor said without flinching, because I know how dangerous it is to us. His words unsettled the chamber. But they were true. The Dominion could rebuild its fleets, but unless it could break the alliances humans had forged, it would always be fighting on the back foot. Later, alone in his private quarters, Kor replayed the last moments of the battle, the Valkyrie hovering among the wreckage. Captain Vance's voice saying there would be no fourth time, it was not a threat born of arrogance. It was a statement of intent. Kor knew the human would strike again someday, and when he did, the galaxy might change forever. On the Valkyrie, as the Alliance fleet dispersed to their own sectors, Vance stood with Illyra at the forward viewport. You think he'll be back? She asked. Yes, Vance said. And when he comes, it won't just be him. It'll be the whole Dominion, desperate to reclaim their fear. Lyra's voice was steady. Then what do we do until then? Vance's gaze stayed fixed on the stars. We prepare, we train. And we make sure the next time they come, they find not 1 Valkyrie, but 10. Somewhere in the endless dark between worlds, the pieces were already moving again. The Dominion rebuilding in silence, the Alliance strengthening in secret, and the galaxy still reeling from the shock. Beginning to choose sides, the legend of the Valkyrie was no longer a whisper. It was a shadow stretching over every star, a reminder that even the greatest empire could fall to the courage of the few. And for both Admiral Kor and Captain Vance, the war was far from over.